Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, welcome to the show. This is the Millennial Millionaire Podcast, and I am your host, Stephen Cohen. This podcast is focused on bringing some of the wisest minds from across the globe to discuss concepts, strategies, and ideals that will lead them to be top performers in their respective industries and their lives. This show is for the millennials and millennials at heart to transcend their mindset, their health, and their income to the next level. We are so excited to have you on this journey with us. Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the Millennial Millionaire Podcast. For today's guest, we have a good friend of mine, a mentor, a business partner. We have Mr. Eric Nielsen. Eric is the co-founder and president of sales of Sunder Energy. He's been in the direct sales industry since 2008, graduated from Utah State. He's been a big mentor of mine for the last decade of my career. Super stoked to have you on the show, dude.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Absolutely, man. Glad you made the trip, finally.
Yeah.
Long overdue.
I've watched a lot of episodes,
Hey.
and I'm happy to finally be on.
Let's do it, dude. So one of the things I love about you, Eric, obviously we've been working together for close to a decade now, but your entrepreneurial spirit is always super strong. Every time that we talk, you have these ideas and you know some successful guy from someone, from your brother-in-law or someone you met from high school in Utah and all the different things. Where did you get your entrepreneur spirit from?
I think the entrepreneurial spirit came from my dad and my grandfather, and I think even his dad was an entrepreneur. I didn't know him, but I've heard he had a grocery store in my hometown, and so I think growing up in a home where my dad was a business owner and was hiring and firing and staying up late and worrying about things and experiencing success at times, it was sort of my normal. And then I would say my ability to connect with people and try to add value to their lives mostly comes from my mom, who is very social. She can make a friend in like 10 seconds at the airport. Like, she's not afraid to talk to anybody.
Gotta get her on the doors.
I know, she'd be great on the doors. But she instilled that kind of social gene in me, and I think the combination has been pretty good for me in my career and life.
When I remember you saying one time that, you know, your parents were never ultra successful, but you grew up in a nice neighborhood and you were exposed from an early age to wealth. You flew on a private jet at an early age. How did getting exposed to that level of success and wealth do you feel like has impacted your life growing up as now you're in the professional space? Yeah,
so you're right. Our neighborhood, it was a college town, so there aren't these like neighborhoods like in Vegas where every house is 5, 10, 15 million bucks. So you had like 5 or 6 families that were really, really well-to-do, that were like private jet wealthy, and then the rest of us were pretty middle class. And I think the biggest thing is these people, as I got to know them and I was kind of raised amongst their kids and in their homes, they're regular people that have an almost unhealthy risk appetite. So it's like if we were all playing a board game, there wasn't like one person that stood out intellectually too much above another, like middle class versus ultra wealthy. But it was that ability to take risks and believe in themselves and do uncomfortable things. And so I knew, like, if I ever want to do anything big in life, I need to not get comfortable with that, but I need to do that and really never be comfortable and be doing things that are stretching me and pushing my limits and those types of things. So I think that was probably my biggest takeaway as a kid. And now looking back on it after being in a career for something like 17 years and growing a business, I also think these people have to have a level of grit and an ability to take on stress that would cripple most people. So it's like risk appetite plus grit plus ability to take pain and stress equals whatever the product ends up being. You're either good at those things and it ends up being pretty good, or you're not, and the end result isn't good. And the end result has to be like failure in a lot of cases. That could be really painful and put you back a bunch of years if you want to do big things. That's kind of how I see it. At least your first big venture. That's how I see it.
Pressure is a privilege. I forgot the first time I heard that, but I think too many people they strive away from pressure. They strive away from stress because of maybe fear that they can't handle it, or maybe fear of the unknown to even take that risk in the first place. But what I've learned is the only way to really see what you're made of is put yourself in a vulnerable situation long enough to then grow the level of belief that you can actually accomplish the thing that maybe the person that you're admiring or the person that you met when you were a younger age could accomplish.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I would say if you're not feeling pain or pressure or discomfort, you're probably not growing and you're probably not reaching your potential. And so if there are two paths and they're both good paths, they're not going to put you in danger, but one of them is more comfortable than the other, chances are that's probably the path you should go down.
No, I love it. How do you deal with stress personally? We're in a very stressful industry, dude. These last 5 years, these last 16 months have been very challenging. You have a amazing family, your wife. You need to show up as a family man, as a husband, as a father. How do you compartmentalize the challenges that come through the work day? Is it something? Yeah. Is it working out? Like, how do you manage stress so it doesn't bleed into the other areas of your life?
Yeah. So my wife, Jackie, she's very in tune emotionally, and with me, she can read me really easily. And so I would say first and foremost, her support and her like being there for me and doing the little things can really help bring that stress level down, no matter how chaotic it is outside of the walls of our home. So when things aren't good at home, or I'm disappointing her or not present at home, I can stress her out, which then stresses me out. And so I think being very deliberate with phone time and like trying to not take too many calls after I walk through the door until the kids go to bed, those types of things are important. I think a relationship with a higher power, for sure, for me, has been really helpful. Like when times get really, really tough and you don't know where else to go, I've always been able to go to my higher power. I believe we have a God in heaven and he hears us. And then your typical stuff, like I work out as much as I can. Our travel schedule is crazy. So I used to work out like 2 body parts per day.
Let's go.
And then I would miss 2 days. And then I'm like, oh crap, I didn't do triceps 2 weeks in a row. And so I've actually started doing full body. So do 1 set per like area of the body and go really heavy weight and try and get some balance there. So for me and anyone out there that's got a crazy travel schedule, that has been super healthy for me. And I've actually incorporated dry sauna, cold shower. I don't have a cold plunge like you, but cold shower and not cardio, but like incline walking. And I take calls and I put my AirPods to isolation mode so I don't bother everybody around or on the other line, because it really isolates your voice and makes it so people aren't annoyed when they're talking to you. So that's really important, gym time. And then I think doing everything I can to make sure my relationships at work and with friends and whatever are healthy, and that I'm being thoughtful. And sometimes people reach out because they need something like tangible or monetarily, and other times people reach out because they need healing or they need support or they need something emotionally. And I try to stay outside of myself as much as possible. I find the most fulfillment when I'm more worried about other people than I am about my own problems. So those things, along with I try to eat well and do all the things, listen to podcasts, read books, but those are kind of the main things that come to mind.
If you're feeling helpless, get helpful.
Yeah.
When the times where I feel like I'm the most woe is me and victim is typically when I'm focusing on myself and my problems and my challenges and my stress, where, like you said, if you can get outside of yourself and focus on maybe someone else, focus on serving others, maybe focus on serving your family, it makes things a lot easier because you're not focused so much on self, you're focused on something that's external.
Yeah.
So I love that a lot. It's a tough industry to be in because I think all the time we have a demand to support other people, fill other people's cups. Obviously, we're all providers for our family. We need to show up for our teams and our employees, and making sure that we can't allow the challenges that go on with ourselves to flow into the way we show up to other people. So I think it's so important for people listening, whether you're just a sales rep or you're a business owner, or you're obviously running, a massive company like you, Eric, is to making sure that your cup is full. Because if your cup's not full and you're not focused on making sure you're showing up in the best way, the way you show up to individuals, it's not going to be the way that you need to.
I agree with that. And I think filling that cup with life lessons, really content, like whether it be an experience you have, an interaction you have, a podcast, a principle you learn on a podcast or in a book, or watching an informative TED Talk or whatever it is. I think staying curious is so important for leaders, because your people come to you oftentimes with empty cups, and they need you to fill the cup. And we hear it on different podcasts and stuff, but it's it really is almost selfish to be selfless, because you receive so much back. And those of us that have figured that out, it's like it's the driving force isn't to get something back, but it just happens naturally. And it helps you proceed in a job that is more emotionally draining, I think, than most jobs. Salespeople are emotional creatures, as are all humans, but salespeople specifically are more like artists than they are scientists. You've heard me talk about this, but it really is an art to manage salespeople, motivate them, make them feel loved, and be genuine about it.
Yeah, what a skill set to learn. The reason I think we get paid so much, solar people, door-to-door people that are in the direct sales space can make the type of income that doctors, lawyers, surgeons can make, is because of what you just said, their ability to communicate with other living beings on this planet. There's 7 billion people on this planet, and it doesn't matter what you do in life, whether you want to start your own business, be a philanthropist, even work a 9 to 5, you're going to have to get good at dealing with people. And your ability to do that, dealing with the emotions, not allowing other people's challenges and problems to affect your psyche and your emotional stature, will determine the level of joy and the level of success you'll have in any business that you do. I want to talk a little bit about door-to-door. So you graduated from Utah State Business School. Mm-hmm. What brought you into this unorthodox door-to-door industry?
So I served an LDS mission in Ohio, and I had done one semester at Utah State before I left. And I'd done a year and a half of college in high school. So when I left on my mission, I was technically a junior in college. And then when I got back, I was like in my third year of school, but I felt like I was a freshman, and a bunch of my buddies had been selling different things, mostly door to door. And at the time it was like satellite TV, pest control, and alarms kind of like dominated that space, at least at Utah State. And I had a really good buddy that I thought, okay, maybe I'll go with him and work with him. And then I thought to myself, you know what? I'm not going out with any friends. Like, I'm here to make money and to help people. And I can only do that to the best of my abilities if I have zero distractions. And so I actually did a study abroad that first year back. So this is 2008. Went to Asia for a month and a half, and then joined up with a team. There was a guy I kind of knew in high school and never really hung out, but he got me on his team. And then it was part of Cody Vabel and Trevor Frank's first team at Apex, for those OGs out there that are listening. And we absolutely dominated. I think my first day was the 4th of July, and was there 6 weeks, sold really well, and then came back and thought, okay, I'll do this again, and then I'll graduate and move on. And the means to an end turned into something more for me. And I always wanted to go to grad school, knew I was going to do an MBA, and thought this door-to-door direct sales world is providing me opportunities to manage dozens of people, recruit dozens of people, sell, learn people skills, like all the things. And I thought that'd be better experience leading into grad school than anything else I could do. And so that's what I did, and thought I was done with it after 5.5 years. Went to graduate school, and then it sucked me back in post-grad school. So thought I was going to go do big corporate America, like take over the world that way, and realized this industry is so unique. It's so fun. It's not boring, and I felt like I could make a big impact in it. And so that's ultimately what led me back into the industry after grad school.
It's funny because I don't think anyone growing up says, I want to be a door-to-door salesman. Astronaut,
Yeah.
maybe, professional baseball player, never door-to-door salesman. But this industry, for those that are maybe looking from the outside in, is strange and weird. And, you know, I got it all the time when I started. Go get a real job. What do you think you're doing?
Yeah.
But then when you look behind the curtain, it's one of the best industries that I've ever seen. You know, the transformation that you're able to see, the level of support and mentorship, like you said, the skills, the philosophies you learn. It's basically a personal development program with a compensation plan attached. From you being on the field for 5-6 years and obviously always running different teams and obviously being in different C-level positions in the direct sales to now running more of the day-to-day of the company, what parallels do you see between the actual direct sales industry and running kind of traditional businesses?
Yeah, I think some days it feels like I have 2 jobs. Most days I'll usually wake up and early phone calls are with sales leaders, sales reps in the field.
All time zones?
All time zones. So I think for almost a decade, I've overseen teams from the East Coast at times to Hawaii. Today it's Hawaii again. And so there's always something. I try to stay close with people. I think managing 2 layers down, or at least connecting 2 layers down. If you know our space, we have regional managers and then managers under them. And I like to stay connected there emotionally, even if we're not working on anything in particular. And then HQ is very different, like corporate world, HR, operations, legal, all of those things. It does almost feel like a different job, but we're all focused on the same thing, which is impacting lives, building a successful company, taking care of the people that trust us, both on the customer side and the rep side, the families behind that. But I think I think I had enough training to be somewhat educated in all these different disciplines to where I can look at a financial statement and understand what's going on. I can read a legal document and make my way through it. But I think building up a team that specializes in these things has been so awesome, because I can check in, we can have regular meetings, but they're building their department with a lot of autonomy, and we've been lucky to have a team behind us that has done a great job with that. But at the end of the day, it's all people, and usually W-2s, salary, hourly, they're people that don't like risk as much, and they don't want to go put themselves in front of random strangers at their doorstep. And then the sales reps do not want that desk job. They don't want to feel comfortable. They don't want a cap on their income. And so they're both types are people, but they're different types of people. So, but it's fun. It's fun to navigate both worlds and try and sew them together to create a successful company. You have to have both. And if anyone thinks they can just start a company, have a bunch of salespeople, and forget about all the other traditional disciplines, that venture will not last very long.
We've seen it a ton.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I think it's so important, because one of the things that I had my mindset, which I'm very grateful, starting solar 10 years ago, door to door, but I always kind of came into this industry not with the mindset of what can I get, but with the mindset of what can I learn. Because when I first started, I didn't really think this was going to be a career for me. I thought I was going to come in, make a little bit of money, learn how to become a better salesperson, a better leader, and then use this as the vehicle to go on to do whatever I was going to do next. Obviously, it turned into a 10-year plus career for me. But I think for a lot of people coming into this industry, it's a great way to cut your teeth in entrepreneurship and business, because there's not an upfront investment that you have to make. There's very little risk starting out. If you don't make a sale, you don't make money, and then you just move on and doing whatever you're doing. But for the people that can really commit to this industry, and I think really fully surrender to the full gravitation of the job, from sales to leadership to management, to just really maximizing the skills that you can develop in this job. Once they leave and move on, whether that's 5 years, 10 years, whatever they go to, they're just going to be so much more equipped for life.
Yeah.
And it's such a beautiful industry, because most jobs, you go there, you get a paycheck, maybe you meet some people and you leave. Where something like this, it really can transform your professional life if you are willing to commit and be okay learning all the different verticals of the job itself.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I was at a dinner the other day. I can't remember who said it. It was a big group of people, but they talked about chalking up losses in our industry to the game. Like, hey, you've entered this game and things are going to go wrong. You might not get paid on a deal, or you might have a deal snaked from you, or a customer file a complaint on you, or whatever. If you're going to be in the game, things are going to happen. And I'm a huge basketball fan, football fan, love sports, and I can't even imagine the best shooter in the world, I think, is Steph Curry, probably the best shooter of all time in basketball. And to expect for him to make 100% of his three-pointers is insane, because like anyone that's watched basketball knows, like, a good three-point percentage is in the 40s. And that's missing more than he makes, and he's the best in the world. And so he doesn't let a miss get him down. He doesn't let a turnover get him down, or a loss get him down. Like, he's focused. He has a purpose. He has a mission. And I think oftentimes people come into our industry and they expect perfection out of the company. They expect perfection out of their leaders. They expect perfection out of the industry. Like, if something goes wrong in the industry and they miss out on something, they're like furious. And I think rather than getting upset, you need to chalk it up to the game. And maybe there's a better team for you to join or whatever. But once you join that team, you're a player on the team as part of an organization, and put your head down, go to work, make it happen. And to your point, the learnings that you get from every experience can be a positive or a negative. And it really just depends on what you're focusing on. And so, hopefully we do our best to identify problems, but try not to dwell on those and have it turn our culture into a negative. So it's, it's always a challenge. I feel like an organization is a living, breathing thing full of curious and interesting people, and navigating that is a challenge, but it's fun. No day repeats itself. It's always a new venture.
A philosophy that I learned in network marketing that I've taken into my door-to-door career is you got to get rid of your upline. Basically, I remember a mentor telling me in network marketing, maybe I caught myself blaming my upline, or I wasn't getting enough training, whatever the case is, for the 3 years that I did network marketing. And I remember learning that if you're going to be successful in this, and I think it applies to door-to-door, you have to get to the point where it doesn't matter if everyone around you quit, doesn't matter if your upline quits, if your manager quits, if you're not getting the training that you're supposed to, if your company's not doing the thing that you're supposed to. Like, it really still is up to you to go out there and create success in this industry. And until you get to the point where you have full and complete ownership over your business, because it is your business, you're a 1099 independent contractor in our space, then you're always going to blame the outside circumstances for your success and lack of success. So the advice I'd give you guys listening, for those that are in our space, is just say bye to your upline. Don't count on your company to save you. You have to get to the point where, yes, use the resources that are at your disposal, but it needs to come down to you whether or not you're going to create success in this space or not.
For sure.
Let's talk a little bit about mentorship. I know you're big on mentorship. You are a mentored. You've been mentored. You have tons of stories of different philosophies and life principles that you've learned from people throughout your professional career. How important has mentorship been to you, and what advice would you give for people that are seeking more mentorship that maybe don't currently have it?
Yeah. I think a mistake people make at times is they think there's this successful person, I know him or her, but they're so busy, they probably can't help me, or they don't want to help me, or they wouldn't make time for me. And I think that's just wrong in most cases. And hey, maybe you're right. If you have 3 people like that in your life, maybe 2 of them don't want to help, they don't have time, whatever. But I guarantee you, if you ask all 3, one of them, at least one of them, is going to step up and mentor you. And I'm very, very careful and cautious about who I allow in to that like mentor category. And my wife gets on me all the time for this, and she's like, you don't listen to people very well that you don't respect or have alignment with or have the same values. And she might be right. Like, I'm very, very careful with that. It's not that I don't respect all humans and see good in all humans, but if I'm going to listen to your life advice and allow you to change the course of my life, I'm going to be extremely careful with who I let in. And so I've done that. And luckily, the people that I have identified as people that I would take advice from and make life changes because of, there have been enough of those people that have said yes. But usually, if you don't identify that you would like help and you don't speak up, they're not going to do it. Most people don't like to give unsolicited advice, especially successful people, but they're full of good advice and nuggets and things that'll help you in life. And chances are they didn't get to where they were without really good mentors or a mentor. And usually the feeling once you've had a good mentor is it's really my obligation now to pass that on to the next generation or to someone that's in need the way I was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So I think, I guess to sum it up, I think successful people are more willing than you would probably think to help, to share, to guide, but be respectful of their time, be prepared, have your set of questions ready. And, sometimes it might be someone super close to you and you spend a bunch of time with them. Other times, maybe they really don't have a whole lot of time, but they've carved out 30 minutes of their day. So be on time. If it's a lunch meeting or, you go to a ball game together, be respectful, be on time, be the type of person that they would want to hire to be their chief of staff, I would say, and follow that line of logic. And I think you'll see a lot of success in gathering healthy mentorship around you.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's so important to take advice from people that have the results you want. You would never ask someone for fitness advice if they're overweight. You would never ask someone for relationship advice if they've had 3 different wives. You need to be very mindful. I remember I used to only care if someone was successful, I'd listen to them. I've shifted a little bit because success at what cost is sometimes dangerous. You could have monetary success, but if your personal life is in ruins, if your health is in ruins, I don't really know if I want to take advice from you, because if I go down that path, it could jeopardize other areas of my life where I know other people that have all the different areas that I strive for that could probably give me some more sustainable feedback on how to not have to sacrifice certain areas. Let's talk about sacrifice a little bit, because there's always seasons of life. I'm a firm believer that there's seasons of life. Sometimes there's a season of sowing, sometimes there's a season of reaping, sometimes you're in winter, spring, etc., just like the actual seasons. How do you balance sacrifice? when I was in my early career in door to door, I felt like I had to sacrifice a lot more. I was away from my family. I was away from my girlfriend. All I cared about was solar, 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 which was healthy at the moment, but not healthy for a sustainable life long term. And now I feel like I have a little bit more leisure because I've built a big enough foundation where now I can focus more on the 20% that creates 80% of the results. What's your relationship with sacrifice, and what advice would you give people that maybe haven't hit their stride yet about different sacrifices?
Yeah, man, that is a great question. I think to bring it back to my home life as a kid, my dad is one of the most selfless people I've ever seen. Like, he'd sacrifice sleep, money, time. He'd be feeling stress financially in the business, or losing an employee or having to let somebody go. Like, he felt that. And there are some business owners, I'm convinced a lot of the people at the tippy top of our business world, they're narcissists. They don't care about other people. And it's all about whatever they want. And when they're done with you, you're thrown to the side and they sleep just fine. And I think to get to the top and to have a heart and do it what I would say the right way, it takes a lot of sacrifice. Sacrifice of your own comfort, sacrifice of sleep because your gut is turning over because it's so stressful, because of the families that are impacted with certain decisions. As a leader, there's no way you can make decisions that just keeps everybody in the fast lane and super comfortable all the time. There are going to be winners and losers, and you hope that more people are winning than losing and that you're doing the right thing for the most amount of people. But, every time I was growing up, I was playing sports all the time, and I knew my dad had businesses to run. He was a Domino's Pizza franchisee, but he was there in the stands every game, every time I looked up. And now I feel guilt because I miss my kids' games sometimes and dance performances. I really try not to, but I'm sacrificing that, which is probably the more important thing to build a business. But I'm also looking at it with the long term in mind, where it's like I'm trying to get this family set up so that their lives and their children's lives are benefited by this sacrifice, this hard work. So it's funny, I was at a stand-up comedian one time, and he's like, you can't, let's see, if you don't have a dad bod, you might be a bad dad. And people laughed, and I thought it was funny because I'm a dad, and I think what he meant is, like, if you're gonna go to the gym in the morning instead of making your kids breakfast, like,
there's a trade-off.
There's a trade-off, and there's a trade-off for everything. And so I don't know if I've ever achieved balance in my life, but I've prioritized certain things. So I can sort of move around the chess pieces to try and have the end result that I want, which ultimately is a healthy marriage, a healthy relationship with God, and the ability to spend my time the way I feel like my maker wants me to spend my time. And I think that's going to largely be time with family.
It's a great answer. Let's talk a little bit about solar, a little bit lighter, I guess, depending on how you look at it. Where do you see the future of solar? Obviously, it's been a crazy, every year I feel like I say it's crazy, but these last couple of years have been extra crazy.
Yeah.
Where do you see the future of solar for those that are listening that are in the industry, macro and micro? Where do you see things going in 2025?
Yeah. So I think electricity usage is going up and will continue to go up, and probably more than any of us expect, with AI coming on the scene really strong, crypto mining, EVs, like even if things change and the government's like, the EV mandate is different now, it's like, no, I've driven a Tesla for 6 years. I can't imagine not having an EV now. Like, yeah, we have a gas car, but EVs are here to stay. They're fun. Maintenance is low. Like, they're going to continue to dominate. And so with that, there's more stress on the grid and more demand and not enough power. And so I think solar is a great way to do it. You can have an individual homeowner make a decision for their property. And I think a lot of them are going to continue to choose to go solar. I think batteries will dominate in the future. We're already seeing this in California, Arizona, Texas, Florida. And I think there will be some innovations on the battery side that blow your mind. Confidentially, we're working on a really cool project right now that I think is going to change the game that we aren't going to talk about for a while. But it's, I think from a macro standpoint, the winds are at our backs. I think when you zoom in, you have an industry that got a lot of momentum, government funding, new companies sprout up, and that probably started 12 to 15 years ago. And then it really boomed and everybody ran to it. And now we're seeing a consolidation. Money's tightened up. Companies have gone out of business. People like us are realizing that maybe a model that we first thought would be the winning model is actually not, and that local and regional construction is the better way to go. And ultimately, if you're obsessed with the customer experience and delivering on what you've promised that person or that family or homeowner, delivering on that, I think, is the most important thing. Sales reps will be taken care of, managers will be taken care of, companies will do fine, but we have to be obsessed with the customer. And I think figuring out how to properly deliver for customers has been a learning experience for our industry over the last 15 years. And I think it's better now than ever. I think it's as clear as it's ever been what we need to do to ensure compliant sales practices, in-market commission rates, doing the things the right way, selling someone as though it was your own grandmother or mother or sister, and just being really careful there. So I think in the micro and the near term, it's going to be a rough 6 to 12 months for a lot of companies, but that consolidation will breed some winners that come out of there. And I think those businesses are going to be set up really well for the next 5 to 10 years at least. So
why do you think there's been so much solvency in the industry? You would think with such a booming industry and how much of a value prop the customer proposition is to customers, like how are these companies, from installers to finance companies, is it just the cost of borrowing money right now? Since COVID, it feels like it's really just been these last 24 months that the reality of, hey, you may not get paid on this deal or this installer may go out of business has really just been so prevalent. Is it just mismanagement of funds? Is it incompetence at the top? I'm sure it's a balance of them, but what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's some of it. I think most businesses in our industry they were built for up and to the right growth because there was a lot of up and to the right growth. And so what that resulted in is you have businesses, especially on the installer side, that are asset heavy, that are really expensive to run, that are operating on really thin margins, I should say. And so when you're up and to the right, you can operate on single digit margins. But when the dip comes, and the dip came last year for a lot of companies, I think we were the only companies that actually grew over that time frame in our industry. But you're not built for that. If you have low margin and you have all these fixed costs, it's very difficult to live through that. The other thing is, we've seen some examples of some really big money that has come in the space, and they pretty much have unlimited funds, and they shut it down after 2 or 3 years because they couldn't move fast enough, and they were just burning cash. And so it's like, yeah, they could continue that bonfire of cash burning, but they just chose not to. They got out. And so there's this balance of like, you got to know what you're doing. Like, you can't just jump in the space, even if you have unlimited money. Like, you can't just jump in and be successful. And then you have to be smart with how you structure the business. Obviously, culture matters in every business. But then you have like public companies that are operating mostly to hit the quarterly number. And so they aren't making decisions today that might be what's best for the company in a year or 2 or 3 or 10. They're trying to hit a number for the quarter because that's what the shareholders care about. That's what the investors care about. So that's a problem in an industry that has pipelines that often take 1 to 6 months to get a job to install, and everyone's trying to hit a forecast, and it's not easy, and it's not for the weary. So we feel like we're in a good spot where we have a national sales footprint using multiple regional installers. We built proprietary tech to tie it all together. I think our tech stack's unrivaled in the space. And then we've stayed away from raising all the money and buying trucks and warehouses and stuff. And sales and tech is what we're good at. And so we've stayed in our lane. And I foresee us staying in that lane in the near future as well. But introducing some new and innovative products along the way, I'm excited about that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been crazy. You know, I've been doing this since 2015. I think the same as you is back in the day, it was how much are you paying, aka Redline, or how fast are your install times, or this and that. And now all the recruiting talk has been, are you going to be in business 2 years from now? Like, what's your sustainability? Like, what's your longevity? Are you paying? So it's been quite an interesting ride over the solar coaster over the last 10 years. But I agree with you. Yeah. I think most of the challenges are behind us, but there's definitely still some headwinds that I feel like going into 2025, you need to be nimble. You need to be, like you said, asset liability light. You need to be able to shift on a dime. And the people that can outlast this storm of challenges that are amongst our industry right now, I think will eventually rise to the top.
For sure. And one of the biggest stressors for me is ensuring that customers are taken care of. This is a for most people a 25-year expense / investment. Some of them have an ROI after 2 or 3 years, depending on how they buy the system. If they pay cash and they're in a market that gets you a good return, but it's we have to do right by our customers. I think the lion's share of customers 10 years from now will have an installer that didn't make it. And I already have neighbors now that call me that are like, hey, my system's having a problem. My installer's out of business. What do I do? So now we're seeing unique companies pop up to service the industry, finance companies. The reason I like TPO so much, which is the leased product, is because you have big companies behind it. You have big investors behind it who will continue to help that customer find service if they need it. So,
and there's a floor and a ceiling. The sales rep doesn't have full autonomy over pricing with
absolutely
cash and loans.
Absolutely. We're 90+% of our business. It can't even get through the system unless 14 people have proven that it's a first-year cost savings for the customer. And then even on that 5% or less, we have restrictions and caps and things. And that's, to my earlier point, it's taken a number of years to figure out how to do that and what needs to be done. And that's just indicative of a new industry that is growing and learning which policies and procedures need to be implemented. So I am proud of the industry in that regard. I think it has proactively stepped up, and we were trying to get better and do right by customers.
The interesting thing to me is in 2015, I remember making $150 to $200 a kilowatt.
Yeah.
Sales commission. And I thought that was amazing money because as a broke college student at the time, I could make, a couple $1,000s in install, which was amazing. I could sell 8 in a month, make great money, change my parents' life, change my life. Things are great.
Yep. Commissions
have obviously close to 10x in some markets since 2015. There's people in California that are making 5 to 10x that. Even in Nevada, Arizona, commissions have gone up drastically in the last decade of the solar industry.
Yeah.
My question, Eric, is if commissions have 5, 6, 7, 8x, why do you think most sales reps are still making around the same money?
I think most people are the same, and they have the amount of money they want to make, and then they allocate the amount of energy and enthusiasm to it to get them to that level, and then they stop. And I think that's the difference between your top performers and everyone else is they don't they don't stop. You don't stop producing, working, trying to multiply your talents. I think commissions could get cut in half. Let's say it happened to the whole industry, half commission, we'd probably double output. And, from a businessman standpoint, I'm like, that might actually be the best thing to happen to us. But I know, just like a cold plunge, no sales rep is going to want to go do that, even though it might be actually really good for them. And they're going to help more customers. So it's this balancing act. The thing that also has happened over the last decade is utility rates have gone out of control. So the thing that we're comparing our product to continues to get more and more expensive. In most industries, your competition figures out ways to get cheaper over time, or higher quality, same price, their product improves. For power, the product is the same and it keeps getting more expensive. And so that is an advantage to being in residential solar. But, I don't believe it's good to have an industry where people are making crazy amounts of money and posting about it online and all these things, unless it's like, yeah, I went and worked 80 hours a week all year and there was no cap. And the thing I love about direct sales is you don't have to pay the people that are unproductive, as long as you're following the guidelines of how to treat a 1099 sales rep. Let them have their autonomy, their time, control their schedule. But if they don't go work, I'm not paying them. And because they didn't produce anything. And that allows us to pay the reps that are productive really well. But you had a bunch of install businesses pop up. They have all these fixed costs, asset heavy, and then when volume dips, they get desperate, and so they start paying sales more than they would have normally because they're trying to stay in business, and it's just this vicious cycle that I think is cleaning itself up through this consolidation effort. But we'll see what 2025 has in store for us. There's never been a year where I've been able to predict exactly what's going to happen. It's always fun.
It's going to be a fun year. Fast forwarding a little bit, obviously we have some great years in solar ahead of us. We have a lot of people to help, a lot of reps' lives to change, a lot of new challenges and headwinds amongst us. But have you ever thought about what you're going to do once solar is over?
Some days I'm like, I just want to take a month to chill, but that's not me. Like I have a really hard time sitting or feeling like I could be doing something productive and I'm not. But I think I'll definitely want to spend more time with my family in whatever I do. I'm already a pretty active investor, so I'm trying to get my money working for me and passive income to a good level. I feel like I'm pretty diversified in a bunch of high-risk things, though, with our businesses and some investments I've made, so hoping some of those pay off. Yeah, but some days Max, our CEO, is like, I'm going to start a garbage man company with 2 employees after this thing's done.
He'd be great at it.
Because it's a lot of work. But I think the home services space is ripe for young entrepreneurs to come step in and level them up. I don't know the statistic exactly, but between HVAC and roofing and plumbing businesses and just your like blue collar kind of helps keep our country running businesses, a lot of those businesses are owned by baby boomers that are wanting to retire, and they might want to sell the company, and we're seeing private equity consolidate those types of industries. So I could see myself maybe jumping into something like that. But I think my hope is when this venture's done, I'll have the freedom to do whatever I want to do, whether it's like coach high school football or go start another big company or buy a company or consolidate a bunch of companies. I don't quite know what that's going to look like yet, but I do think coaching my kids sports would be really fun. So
I think that's such an important point that you bring up. It's something I try and touch on and remind myself that direct sales is a vehicle. I don't think anyone wants to be knocking doors when they're 65 years old, even though we do have some in the company that do it, and mad respect. But I don't think anyone that has been doing this for a decade wants to do it for 3 decades. And if you're not careful and you're not intentional and you're not mindful of the money you're making and being hyper focused on your targets and making sure that you're paying yourself first and making some of these investments, then when solar is over, or direct sales or alarms or pest or whatever industry you're in, you're just going to go have to get another sales job. And I love this quote. We don't do this to get by, we do it to get ahead. So Eric, you've seen a ton of people in your 15, 16-year career, from the Todd Petersons to being able to see many different super successful direct sales businesses. What advice would you give to the people in the direct sales space so once they're done with this industry, they can do the things they want to do and not the things that they have to do based on your experience?
Yeah, I think the economy in general, citizens in general, have a hard time saving money. I mean, I've heard the statistic, like 80% of all Americans live paycheck to paycheck regardless of income. If you're in this industry and it's going well, like let's say you're making 6 figures plus, my advice would be to live on 50% of your net, your after-tax net. Live on that and then invest the rest. And maybe stash some in a savings account. I think that's having something that's liquid, or having, an index fund that's highly liquid. You could sell if you needed some capital. I think that's wise. I would have a goal of having 6 months worth of your living expenses highly liquid. I don't love just parking money in a savings account. I'd recommend, I'm not an investor, or
This isn't financial advice.
This is not financial advice. Disclaimer. Something like a low-fee index fund. I'm a huge Berkshire Hathaway fan. To me, that's almost like owning an index fund because they're so diversified, so smart. But having that capital working for you, but there in case you need it. And then I don't think I have one example of a successful person that didn't touch real estate in some way. And I got my start investing in real estate. It was a fourplex, owner occupied. I think I was still in college or just barely married and out of college. And it was one of the best investments I've ever done. It was like triple digit returns, and loved getting involved in that. And then real estate has kind of always been part of my portfolio since then. So I think real estate is fantastic if you're doing it right and if you're smart about it. And usually it's like people that understand the markets that they're buying or building in. And I think that really helps give you an edge in real estate. But then there's like a million deals out there that you'll get pitched by once you have some capital. And I would say just be very, very careful about where you're putting your money. And if one of those mentors I talked about earlier, or other people you trust, have put money there and have had a good experience, that's a good sign. But I think there are a lot of ways to spend that money once you have it. So make sure you check 3 times before you put the money in, and just be very, very cautious.
It's wise words. These last 24 months, my biggest lesson financially has been the power of liquidity.
Yeah.
And going back to good old Omaha's,
the Oracle of
Omaha, Mr. Warren Buffett's 2 rules is, number 1, don't lose money. Number 2, remember rule number 1. And sometimes, like you said, once you start making some good money, or you start, getting some traction in your business, there's going to be too many opportunities that you can count on one hand that are going to come to you. And most of them are not going to be great. Maybe they're great for someone else, but at least in my experience, you have to be very mindful. I think it's very wise, checking the track record, getting referrals, references, because investing to invest isn't very wise. It's making sure you're clear on your strategy, clear on your goals. What do you want? Do you want cash flow? Do you want long-term equity? Do you want protection? Do you want liquidity? And, measuring twice and cutting once.
Yeah, for sure.
Couple more questions as we wrap up, Eric. This has been amazing. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, man.
When it comes to success means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. One of the best definitions I've heard of success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. knowing something that you're working towards and making progression towards it, whether you're the door-to-door salesman that wants to hit 100 installs in a year, or you're the real estate investor that wants to chip away at his real estate portfolio, as long as you have a clear enough vision, how do you measure success in your life?
I am very hard on myself on this topic. So I think I don't have like a constant meter of success. I don't really take inventory of like, was that a success or am I successful? I think living up to my potential is success. And I think if coming into this world, there's a set number of people that God could reveal to me that he wanted me to impact positively. Like, let's say the number's 5,000. I think success would be touching as many of those lives as possible. Hopefully I can get to 5,000 or more. But if I end up becoming a man that looks a lot different than the man that he wanted me to be, then I think I would consider that to be a failure. But success is like, do my kids want to spend time around me? Do they know that they're loved? Does my wife feel respected? Does she know that I love her? And I know I fail in those areas all the time, but that to me is number one. Obviously, my relationship with God is so important, and I think I fail him all the time, but he's very merciful with me. And I think if I'm just talking about like success in business and in investing, it's being able to serve or give of my time, my money, my energy to whatever cause I feel in my heart I need to be giving to at that time, whether it's an individual, an organization, a business, a customer. Having that flexibility, I think, is success. And most people can't get to that point unless they have the financial resources to do it. That's not to say that a poor person or a beggar can't impact lives and do it on a really meaningful basis. But the people I've seen who are, in my mind, successful have the ability to go and change and impact lives. And I would say your time and energy and commitment is probably more important than if you just cut a check to somebody or to a charity. And so get in a position where you're not just cutting checks and riding off on your yacht. You're cutting checks and rolling your sleeves up and doing the work with whoever those people are. I think that's success to me. Not that I couldn't enjoy a nice tropical vacation, but
We love our vacays.
I think more service, less selfless.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
Sorry, selfish, not selfless.
You got to be selfish to be selfless sometimes.
That's right.
Eric, my last question for you. If you can go back in time, the person you are today, business savvy leader, runs one of the largest solar companies in the country, can go back in time to Eric in 2008 when you first got into door-to-door undergrad in Utah State, what advice would Eric today tell 2008 Eric to accelerate his success, joy, and abundance?
Yeah. That's an easy one for me. I think about this a lot. Enjoy the moment. So take us back to 2008. I'm always looking for like, what's next? What's next? What do I need to do to get to that level? Instead of what do I need to do to be the absolute best at what I'm doing right now? And oftentimes those things would align pretty well. It's like, hey, I want to be the sales leader. What do I need to do to be the sales leader? Usually that means like be a really good salesperson, recruit others, whatever. But if my question would have been, what do I need to do to be the best salesman? I think I would have sold a lot more and would have been a more effective leader. And leadership would have been the result, not the target. And so for anyone out there, especially the young entrepreneur or salesperson or office worker, whatever your role is, be the absolute best at that role. I don't care what it is, and good things will happen. And then you'll be a much more influential person when you do get into leadership because you know the ins and outs of each role so well. So 2008, Eric, I wish you could hear this. I know you're not there right now, but that to me is something I really wish I would have done. Second thing, and I'm sorry, long-winded here. Companies often do gimmicky things to get you motivated, and sometimes I would roll my eyes, or I was like, I'm going to work just as hard no matter what. Buy into that stuff. Like, even if it's for a t-shirt, go make it happen. Like, make the fun in winning be the reason, not the t-shirt itself. And support the ownership of the company. You might be at a small company. Maybe they don't have many resources. Support those leaders. Like, they're having tough days, sleepless nights. They don't want you to know it. They're bearing those feelings sometimes because they feel like they have to be stoic and strong for the company. But be the best employee, sales rep, sales leader you can be. Focus on your role, live in the present, and go do the work.
Boom. Mic drop. Dude, thanks so much. Quick plug for Sunder. If someone's listening right now and wants to get plugged in our 44 states around the country, who can they contact? Where can they find us?
So you can DM Stephen Cohen.
Come on.
We have a website, joinsunder.com. You can go to and kind of get a feel for who we are, our culture. There's a link on that. And then your Instagram, social media accounts, you can always DM that way. Or you can DM me, Max Britton. If you're interested in working with us, we'd love to have you.
Boom. Dude, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Guys, we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.